From the studios here at CATV6 and RobinHoodRadio.com, welcome once again to Simply Sports. My name is Andy Williams. Thank you once again for tuning in. November the 2nd, 2019. A couple things before I start the show. First of all, I want to wish a very happy and belated birthday, because I didn't get a chance to say it, and I plumb forgot. And that makes me a pretty terrible person. I want to wish my sister Sarah a happy birthday yesterday. And I also wanted to bring up that tonight's show, I'm doing this show in honor of one of my dearest friends and one of my distant relatives, Sean Van Dusen. He passed away a couple days ago, unexpectedly. Sean was somebody who could light up the room, and he was just a kind soul. He really was. Very funny to be around, just an all-around good person. And we lost him on Wednesday night, and this is a tough loss for everyone in the area. So tonight's show I'm doing in honor of Sean Van Dusen. So okay, I know it's going to be a little hard for me moving forward since what happened Wednesday night, but the show must go on, as they say. The World Series, it has came and it has gone. Game 7. Wow. All I can say is wow. Before I dive into that, ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open right now and throughout this whole hour. 860-824-4200. 860-824-4200 to come on live and ask me questions, debate with me on the air live. I'm in a debating kind of mood today. So you got questions, I will have answers for you. So, Game 7 of the World Series last night. Actually, not last night. It actually was Wednesday night. The Washington Nationals did it again. They did it again. They put the Houston Astros put a challenge in front of them, and they defeated them again. They became the first team in modern sports history, in any major sport, to win all 4 games on the road. It has never been done. It is the first time in sports history that all 7 games have been won by the road team. The road team this postseason was 20-17, which equals to about, let me just do the math really quickly, pretty close to a 60% clip. Somewhere about 57% winning percentage, the road team over the home team. So it just goes to prove to you that home field does not matter in Major League Baseball, at least not in the 2019 season. And what a performance. What a performance by Max Scherzer. He goes out, neck spasms, couldn't even get out of bed. That's why they scratched him from Game 5. Goes out in Game 7. Gives up a couple runs early. But then, again, just like you saw in the other 6 games, settled right in. my problem with the Houston Astros, because they were in this game. They were only down 2-0. Get to the 7th. Greinke is pitching a gem. In fact, nobody saw, me included. He goes into the 7th inning and he's barely touched 70 pitches. He gives up a home run. The lead is 2-1. And after 6 1/3 innings, they reach the 80th pitch. Greinke gets pulled. He's given up 2 hits, that 1 home run, just that 1 mistake, and 1 walk on the night. Can someone please explain to me how you're going to get pulled after that? So I think to myself, okay, well, Garrett Cole's in the bullpen. Garrett Cole's available. You got to figure, okay, here's a guy who's hardly lost all year in the bullpen. They're going to go to Garrett Cole, and they're going to ride him until the end of the game. That was not the case. They give up 3 more runs, and then sure enough, 2 more runs. Before it was over, it was 6-2. Houston did not let Garrett Cole into the game. And what was A.J. Hinch's explanation for that? The only way that we were going to let Garrett Cole into that game was if he was going to go in and win the World Series. You have a 2-1 lead in the 7th inning of Game 7. First of all, you should never have pulled your pitcher after he's only thrown 80 pitches. See, this is kind of what happened when Washington played the Dodgers in the divisional round. Who was it? Was it Walker Buehler? He should have finished out the 7th, Kershaw in the 8th, Jepsen in the 9th. But now this was in American League Park. You should have let Greinke finish the 7th, end it there, and if he was there with a 2-1 lead, then you give it to Garrett Cole for a 6-out save. It's a no-brainer. But Garrett Cole never entered that game. And the explanation being, I was not going to put him in the game unless it was a situation to win the World Series. Garrett Cole, afterwards, hearing those comments, did not particularly like those comments. And he said very simply and very frankly, he didn't say much. He just said this one line: I am no longer an employee of the Houston Astros. Period. End of quote. That about said it all right there. So it looks like Garrett Cole, by the looks of it, is going to be heading to what is projected is heading to Los Angeles. He's going to go even further west. And the team that's currently in the running to get Garrett Cole and pay the most money for Garrett Cole are the Los Angeles Angels, who just picked up Joe Madden, who has Mike Trout under a monster contract. I mean, what the LA Angels now are going to be trying to buy a World Series, because that's what it's certainly looking like right now. You bring in the World Series manager, you pay him a lot of money, you pay your superstar hitter, Mike Trout, who's probably the best player in Major League Baseball, best hitter. And if you pick up Garrett Cole, probably the best pitcher in 2019, need I say more? There were some other questions that came out of this World Series after Washington won it, after a Washington, D.C. team won a World Series for the first time since 1924, back when they were the Washington Senators. The first World Series won by the Washington Nationals / Montreal Expos. Les Expos. Is that, are they going to pony up and pay Steven Strasburg a ton of money? They would be foolish if they didn't. Steven Strasburg, your World Series MVP. He pitched phenomenal all throughout the postseason. Now, how much do you pay him? Honestly, I would pay him somewhere upwards of around $300 million. He is that good. He is that consistent. And I would do everything I can, if I'm the Washington Nationals and I want to build a dynasty, to keep that young core sprinkled in with a little bit of veteran leadership. And you want to pay the heart and the soul of the team. The Steven Strasburgs. Scherzer's already on a monster contract. Pay Anibal Sanchez. Pay Hudson. Pay Doolittle. Because now the Nationals are in a very, very interesting spot. Because if they pay top dollar to Steven Strasburg, now you have all these pieces. You know Rendon's going to get paid. Soto's going to get paid. Are they going to re-sign all these players? I would, if I'm Washington. And how awful, how awful does it look for the Washington Nationals winning the World Series this year? This is doomsday scenario for one Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper left the Washington Nationals because he wanted to get paid. It's like 12 years and what was it, 343 million or somewhere, some ludicrous, ridiculous number. But it was a 12-year contract. Year one of that contract, the team you left wins a championship. How's that working out for you, Bryce? probably throwing another tantrum in a hissy fit, just like you do every single time you're in the dugout and a call doesn't go your way. That's about how that's going. Finally, what we take out of the World Series is how bad the umpiring really was. And it was, now I know that TV, Fox and all the networks, they have, the strike zones and everything. So you know what's a ball, what's a strike, and what the normal strike zone is. Boy, oh boy, did they, Big Blue behind the plate was doing a terrible, terrible job calling balls and strikes. And you had the whole controversy with Game 6, with the whole runner interference thing. Thank God it didn't influence the game any. But Major League Baseball needs to seriously sit down with all these umpires and really, really grill them. Because we're certainly getting into now a day and age where it's going to be technology over human error, and it's coming relatively soon. And with this performance that the umpires had, do not be surprised if technology starts taking over sooner rather than later. Because human error could be taken out of Major League Baseball. And that, my friends, would not be a good thing. 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200. If you want to come on live with me, Andy Williams, here on Simply Sports. As we move forward, I have not talking about hockey all season long. Shame on me. I can't believe that already they've played anywhere from 10 to 15 games already, the NHL. And the NHL season is about 15 to 20% over. So, here's how it's gone so far. The best team right now, in my eyes, are the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin and the boys, they're looking to win their second cup in 3 years. However, team that's right on their heels are the Boston Bruins, a team I picked to win the cup last year, a team that let me down last year. And their star winger Pasternak is having a career season so far, an MVP type season. Now, can he sustain that for the rest of the season? Time will tell. Also, the Buffalo Sabres are having a surprisingly good start. But as we know, the cream is going to start rising to the top, and the Buffalo Sabres are going to start to fall back a little bit. Do I think that they'll make the playoffs? Way too early to tell. Come talk to me in January, February. But right now, yeah, they're off to a good start, but again, too early. Out west, there are two teams ruling the roost right now. Edmonton, that young, fast team from Edmonton, Connor McDavid and the boys. And then the other team leading the way is your Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. Playing once again, showing that last year was not a fluke. Picking up right where they left off. hard-nosed, gutty hockey, at times dirty, but again, very scrappy, hard-hitting team. They came up with a formula to win, and they're certainly abiding by it, and it's showing so far this year. The Rangers right now are right about where I thought they would be, 5-5-1, mediocre. I still don't think that they're going to make the playoffs, contrary to some Ranger fans out there. I'm not going to name any names. But those people seem to think that the Rangers are going to make the playoffs. The Rangers are 2 to 3 years away from even thinking about making the playoffs and making a cup run. They need to start developing a young core, which they're starting to, and they need to get rid of the goaltender, Henrik Lundqvist. He is 155 years old and on a monster contract. Please trade him. Do us a favor. Give him the axe. Eat the last $14 million. Who cares? Get the young kid in there. If you're going to be successful down the road, you can't keep sticking with these veterans that keep getting hurt and missing half the season. It doesn't work that way anymore in this NHL. The Islanders are 9-3. The team I have coming out of the East. They're off to a great start. I have very high hopes for the Islanders after their strong performance last year, and they're proving me right so far with a nice, strong 9-3 start. And Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights, who I have coming out of the West, 8-5-1. Kind of just sitting there, win a couple games here and there, get a result. And then before you know it, they'll have 100 points. They'll probably win the Pacific Division or finish second. Once again, they'll be the most dangerous team out west. And then before you know it, poof, they'll win the Western Conference. Just like that. That's how I see it going. So that is my hockey roundup. Again, 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200. That's how you get a hold of me to come into the studio and talk sports with this guy. NBA. I'm going to kind of get a little in depth with the NBA today. Now, last night featured a game between the Lakers and the Mavericks. A young Mavericks team versus kind of a veteran-laden team in the Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they had every right to lose that game. They tied the game on a broken play, three-pointer at the buzzer to force overtime, to which LeBron James absolutely took over. Lakers won by 9. Luka Doncic, I'm absolutely certain, was playing with a concussion at the end of the fourth quarter and overtime. He was bleeding from the back of his head after Dwight Howard headbutted him. And it was clear as day. Don't think he didn't. But now you have another duo that's sort of establishing themselves from Dallas, Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. That seems to be another duo that you're going to have to look out for, not just this season, but many seasons to come. Doncic, very young. Porzingis, you got to keep in mind, Porzingis is only, what, 23, 24 years old? Still very young. Now, is LeBron having a great season? Of course he is. But again, we're 6 games in. He sits atop the Western Conference. They're 4-1. They're tied with San Antonio for the best record. Do I think that they're the best team out west? No. No, I don't. I'm still not convinced. I think you're going to still see a lot of volatility in the Western Conference. Now, one team who's not going to be in the playoffs this year are the Golden State Warriors. They have 9 new faces on that team. They are the youngest team in the NBA. They have 9 players under the age of 24 years old. You have Draymond Green crying and whining, saying that his team, for lack of a better term, is terrible. I'm not going to say what he actually said due to FCC purposes. But now you have Steph Curry, who breaks his hand when he was trying to drive the lane and is going to miss upwards to 2 months. Let me say this very nicely and very kindly to the Golden State Warriors organization. If you are smart, have half a brain, protect your investment, shut down Steph Curry for the rest of the year. And I hate using this term, but I'm going to use the term. Tank the season. We knew right off the jump that Golden State wasn't going anywhere. We saw that clear as day when you went down 16-0 right off the bat to the Clippers in Game 1 in your brand new bazillion-dollar stadium that looks like, from the outside, a toilet. Which it does, actually. You look from an aerial, it looks like a toilet. But anyway. If Steph Curry, if they do the smart thing and shut down Steph Curry for the year, just pretty much punt on 2019 and 2020. Then next year, you will have Steph Curry, a healthy Steph Curry. He'll have Klay Thompson back. Hopefully Draymond Green. And you'll also have D'Angelo Russell. Those 4 can get you a championship. What they got right now is nothing. Now, they already have a conditional draft pick already that's guaranteed in the top 20. So why not get a lottery pick from this young crop that they're going to have coming up in 2019, 2020? And trust me, it's going to be a good class this year. Get him in the fold. Golden State is going to be a force next year. But they have to shut Steph Curry down for the season. They pretty much have to punt and tank this season. Sounds terrible, But it's the smart thing and the good thing for the long term for the Golden State Warriors. So that eliminates them from the West. Other teams eliminated from the West. Sacramento, New Orleans. Got to wait until Zion Williamson comes back from his knee injury. You're not going to see Zion until probably the beginning of 2020. They're a two-year process. They're out. Oklahoma City, they don't have anybody there. And Oklahoma City's terrible. They're out. Memphis, they're garbage. Phoenix, right now they're 8th. If the playoffs were to start right now after Game 6, I have no stock in Phoenix whatsoever. They're out. Plus their big man, Ayton, is out for, 25, 30 games for using a substance, a PD. So that looks real good. So it's just going to be a matter of time before Phoenix falls off the map. So you still have a couple fancy teams like Portland and a Dallas, but I'm quite confident the Lakers are going to make it. I'm confident San Antonio's going to make it. I'm confident the Clippers are going to make it. I think the Jazz are going to make it. Denver's going to make it. And then you're going to see those 8, 9, 10 teams. There's going to be a lot of volatility in there to try to jockey to seat for playoff seedings. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch because you're going to see a lot of high scoring, a lot of offense, not a lot of defense. Because defense nowadays in the NBA is, look, if you keep it under 110 points, that's a great defensive game. No, a good defensive game is when you hold your opponent to 90 or less. That's a good defensive game. But again, this is the NBA that we're in. I think the Lakers will be there in the end. I think the Clippers are going to be there in the end. I don't put a lot of stock in Houston. James Harden and Russell Westbrook, there's not enough of the ball to go around. And you can clearly see it because whenever James Harden catches the ball, he shoots it. And Russell Westbrook is just there, just to clean up after James Harden after a miss. Because James Harden honestly cannot shoot from 3. He can't throw a beach ball into the ocean so far this season. I think he's like 28% from three-point range so far this season. It's not good. So again, I don't trust James Harden and I don't trust Russell Westbrook, easy for me to say, down the line in the long term. Out east, something I did get right, Philadelphia 76ers, undefeated right now. The last undefeated team in the NBA at 4-0. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, those boys, my goodness. And what they did in that scrap with Karl Anthony Towns and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now keep in mind, the Minnesota Timberwolves are a very good team. And they pretty much look like the Broad Street Bullies. They look like the Philadelphia Flyers out there. That was old school. That was 1980s, early 1990s basketball that they were playing. Big fight, a lot of emotion, playoff atmosphere. That's the kind of basketball I would tune into every night. I like what I see out of Philadelphia so far. And I'm going to like what I see as the season progresses. So I think Philadelphia is going to avenge that heartbreaking loss to Toronto. And I think Philadelphia is going to come out of the East. I do. 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200 is the telephone line. You want to talk to me live? That's how you get me. Moving forward to my wrestling fans, and I've been getting a lot of dap for me talking about wrestling, since I do post on Facebook to some wrestling sites and such. I want to talk for a minute about Crown Jewel, the event they had out in Saudi Arabia, and how half of the WWE superstars are still stranded out there. Now, they said it might have been a mechanical issue with the plane and this, that, and the other thing. Turns out there was a disagreement between billionaire owner Vince McMahon and the Saudi Arabian government. And that's not usually a good thing, according to rumors. Now, it was nothing political, it was nothing, but they just said it was a disagreement. And that's not good. So, therefore, there was at least, I want to say, a handful of superstars, a handful of production cast that got held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for Crown Jewel. The event itself, overall out of 10, I give it a 7. It was okay. There were certainly some very good moments. The first ever women's match in Saudi Arabia was absolutely awesome. Natalya versus Lacey Evans. The first time ever that two women wrestled in a wrestling ring in Saudi Arabia. Now, in Saudi Arabia, women were not allowed. WWE and Saudi Arabia said no women wrestlers, nothing like that. WWE made the agreement, said we want to bring women's wrestling to Saudi Arabia. They agreed. They had the match. It was fantastic. Knocked it right out of the park. The crowd loved it. The best tag team in the world, ho hum. That match was a yawning festival. The battle royal to see who would face AJ Styles. It was the young kid, Humberto Carrillo. And what I didn't understand is that why they didn't give the U.S. title to him. Because we saw it on Raw, and okay, that's fine. You don't give the title to him. That's okay. But here's another opportunity for this kid to showcase, and he's really good. I think he's like 19, 20 years old. And nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I think that was another bad job of booking there by WWE. And then Tyson Fury versus Brock Lesnar. That match was a mess. That match was just not fun to watch. Tyson Fury won by a countout. Come on. Really? Nobody wants to see it that way. Now, if Tyson Fury knocked him out, and he got a pinfall, okay. But it looked like Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bam Bigelow in what was it, WrestleMania, I forgot, 11, 12? Something like that. I mean, it was just such a bad match. Such a poor match to watch. And then the two former UFC fighters, Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez. All it was grappling for 5 minutes, and then Brock Lesnar put him in the Kimura lock, put him in a submission, made Cain Velasquez tap. That was the end of the match. Ho-hum, yawn. But then came the Universal Championship match, where the match couldn't be stopped under any circumstances, between The Fiend Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins. There was a title change. Bray Wyatt wound up defeating Seth Rollins after being thrown onto a production truck. Pyro went off, fire went off. The Fiend comes out of nowhere, locks in the mandible claw, hits Sister Abigail. 1, 2, 3, new champ. I like that. A good title change. And you could hear it in the fans. They like that too. That a major title was changed. And WWE fans around the world love that change too. And then Team Hogan versus Team Flair. Ho hum. There was just no reaction. There was nothing. Team Hogan won. But again, like I said on Wednesday's show, you don't see Hulk Hogan getting the reaction like he used to. That big booming reaction. It's not there for Hulk anymore. It's there for Ric Flair. But I don't know. Very interesting. And then the next night, actually last night on SmackDown, we learned that at Survivor Series, it's going to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT, the developmental company, which is being headed by Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Oh, this should be real good. To see the young kids take on the veterans. I'm looking forward to that. Championship versus championship versus championship. Hopefully it's Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar versus Adam Cole. Hey, I'll sign up for that. And then a 5-on-5-on-5 men's and women's from all three brands. My hope is that NXT wins at least one of those matches. Because now WWE has a lot of momentum over AEW. Right now. With what they did at Crown Jewel and last night. If they build on that, and not just up to Survivor Series, but beyond, all the way up through WrestleMania 36. To put it into perspective, yeah, AEW's been beating NXT in ratings, but put AEW up against SmackDown's numbers from last night. SmackDown had 3.5 times the viewers that AEW had. So AEW better come up with something quick. Because round five goes to WWE. And it's not even close. And we'll see if WWE can move in for the knockout. Because right now, AEW is looking like more and more like a bona fide WCW from back in the day. And AEW better get its act together, and they better get it together quick. Once again, 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200. Finally, I better mark this down before I forget. There. College football. I already talked about NFL on the Wednesday show. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into college football since the college football playoff rankings are going to be coming out soon. Obviously, with my picks this week, thus far I'm 2-2. I have SMU versus, who are they playing? Memphis. I have SMU with the points, +6. So hopefully I'll cross the finish line with a winning record, getting me to 60%, actually keeping me at 60% for the season against the spread. Because keep in mind, I'm here to make money for you, the viewer. So the big news coming out of college football is obviously it's going to happen next week, 1 versus 2, Alabama versus LSU. That's the game of the year. Here it is. But here's the million-dollar question. Is the best quarterback in the nation, Tua Tagovailoa, is he going to be playing in that game? Right now, he's listed at questionable. He is a game time. In fact, most people are saying it's going to be a game time decision. I say he's going to play. But there are a lot of skeptics that are saying, well, you know, maybe if he doesn't play, and let's just say they lose, they could still get into the college football playoff. Because they're so good that their strength of schedule in the SEC is obviously they're number one in the conference. The SEC is the best conference in college football. I'm not debating that. However, I've said it before, I will say it again. If you have one loss and you do not play in your conference's championship game, that should disqualify you from even contemplating being in the top 4. I'm just saying that because right now, let's just put the scenario out there, okay? You take a look at all the undefeated teams. So we're going to say next week that LSU beats Alabama, hands Alabama their first loss. Alabama then runs the table. They have one loss. LSU runs the table and wins the SEC championship. Alabama does not play in the SEC championship. We know LSU would be in. Clemson runs the table. Obviously, Clemson is in. I think the winner of Penn State versus Ohio State That matchup is coming up in a couple of weeks. I think whoever runs the table there, or even whoever wins that game and wins the Big Ten championship, they're going to be one of the teams in the college football playoff. So then we come down to who's the fourth team? Who gets in? Well, it's looking more and more like, once again, we're going to see a one-loss team in the college football playoff. And that we're going to see probably 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff. And quite frankly, I'm getting and growing quite tired of it. I think that there should be 4 undefeated teams. If there are 4 undefeated teams in Division 1A, those are the 4 teams that should be in, because they have the best record. This isn't hard, people. You don't have to be a part of a committee. You don't have to go to this college football system, this BCS system, all this stuff that costs money left and right. Give me 4 undefeated teams. Line them up against each other. Who's the best undefeated team against who is the weakest undefeated team? And then the middle 2 undefeated teams. Because right now, you have 2 teams that are most likely going to be on the outside looking in. You have Baylor, who right now sit at 12th in the nation. They're at 8-0 right now. The Baylor Bears have an upcoming game against the Oklahoma Sooners. Let's say they win that game. Now, granted, that game is in Norman at Oklahoma. Let's say they win that game. Let's say they win the Big 12 championship. They are undefeated. They're obviously a part of a Power 5 conference. Do you then go to Baylor, who is undefeated, and say, I'm sorry, you're not in? Answer me that question. Same for SMU. Now, I know you're saying, oh, well, they play in the AAC. Okay. Same situation like I've been banging on UCF's drum the last couple of years when they were undefeated, and they should have been in the college football playoff. Say they run the table. Say they win the AAC championship. Do you deny them a title spot? Now, I think you can deny SMU a little more. That's fine, because they do play in a weaker conference. But say Baylor runs the table, and say Alabama loses next week against LSU. Say Alabama runs the table. Do you take Alabama with one loss? Or do you take the Baylor Bears, who were ranked outside of the top 25 to start the year, who then run the table, beat Oklahoma in Oklahoma, say they win the Big 12 championship, run the table, go undefeated? Do you tell them no? Who's your fourth team? Is it Baylor? Or is it the loser of Oklahoma, or is it the loser of Alabama LSU? Because that's what it's pretty much boiling down to now in the college football playoff. The winner of the Penn State-Ohio State game, say Penn State next week goes to Minnesota, wins that game, then they play Ohio State. If those two teams are undefeated, I'd say the winner of that game, that is pretty much an elimination game. And the winner of that game is going to the college football playoff. No bones about it. Clemson, if they run the table, no doubt about it, they're in. Whoever wins this game next week, Alabama, LSU, most certainly favorites to run the table. They run the table, they're in. But if Baylor runs the table, they go undefeated. And either LSU or Alabama sit there with one loss. Are you really going to put them in over a conference champion just because they play in the SEC? I don't know how much sense that makes. And that's something to contemplate over the month of November. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to Simply Sports on this November the 2nd, 2019. Stay warm out there. And before I forget, make sure, turn the clocks back an hour, and make sure you check those smoke detectors as well. And like I said, stay warm out there. And for Mike Flint, Marshall Miles, Brian Oler, thank you very much for tuning in to Simply Sports. In 1, 4, 3.